Well, welcome back everyone, and we are hopping right in to video 14 of this fantastic and mysterious and very long and fun mini-series. There's a locked door in my new apartment, and once again, I welcome all my new subs. Double check, make sure your bell is on because it's been turning off on some people, and make sure you're still subscribed if you notice that you haven't seen me around. I have all kinds of goodies coming up in the future, but let's get on with the story, shall we? And in 5, 4, 3, 2. I don't want to end up like my sister, Nathan. Please. Again, she started sobbing. A moment later, she calmed down, and I spoke again. Michelle, no one seems to know who the landlord is. Do you have any idea who it could be? Not a clue. Whoever he is, he's responsible for all of this. But I don't know why he'd do it. Or maybe there never was a landlord, and the room is its own owner. This whole apartment has its own flippin' set of its own rules. I don't know anymore. I just don't know. I nodded and asked her. Vincent, from room 204, his daughter Susan was the first person to go missing. Have you seen her in here? No. I saw a lot of people here, and I spent a long time looking for Susan, but she's nowhere to be found. Maybe Dolores was wrong. She was adamant about it, but maybe the apartment didn't take her. Seems too much of a coincidence. I'm sure she's here somewhere. Even if she is, she's probably lost, just like Danny and I. You have to burn the apartment nonetheless, Nathan. And don't tell Vincent anything about it. He says he firmly believes the apartment had nothing to do with her disappearance. But if you tell him you'll burn the place to the ground, he might try to stop you. I will. But I have to warn the other tenants. They need to get out, I said. I'm counting on you, Nathan, she said. We all are. Michelle froze in her sitting position. The tear which was sliding down her cheek stopped in place, and she retained the horrified expression on her face. I waved my hand in front of her face, but she didn't flinch. Do you understand now? I turned to the left where the voice came from. It was Martin, standing in the middle of the room, as calm as always, but this time with a vague smile of satisfaction. I stood up and faced him. I do, I hesitantly said. Whoever you are, and whatever side you're on, this will all be over soon, Martin. He approached me and shook my hand, putting his other hand on my shoulder. It was a pleasure meeting you, Nathan. For the first time, I saw sorrow in his eyes and realized that this was the last time I would probably ever see him. He smiled wildly, and when I blinked, Martin was gone, and I was back in my room. I looked down and saw a Zippo lighter in my hand. I looked at the storage door, which was closed now. At the foot of the door was a gasoline canister. By this point, I had already seen too much in order to be baffled by the sudden appearance of a gas can in my apartment. It was clear the apartment had to be destroyed. I felt bad for the other tenants, since some of them probably owned their place, but it was too dangerous. Besides, insurance would cover their losses. I was worried about being arrested for arson, sure, But whether it was my sleep-deprived and traumatized mind, I decided I would go forward with the plan anyway. I still wasn't sure who Martin was and what his role in all this was, or whether I could even trust him. It didn't matter though, because the apartment had to be destroyed nonetheless. I bent down and reached for the gas can. When I heard my doorbell ring, almost making me jump out of my skin, I was very confused. I looked at my watch to see if perhaps it was later than 4:23 a.m. Who could it be at this hour? As I approached the door, a knocking on the door kept resounding. Whoever it was, they were not about to leave. I peered through the peephole and saw an old man's face on the other side of the door. Vincent. Damn it! I can't let him see the gas can. I put the Zippo in my pocket, and I hurriedly picked up the surprisingly heavier than I thought can, hauling it to my bedroom. I then rushed to the door, hearing my doorbell ring again. I unlocked the door and opened it, trying to act surprised that it was Vincent. Hey, Nate, how's it going? He smiled. Vince? It's 4 a.m. Is everything okay? I asked, holding the door half open and ready to close it at any moment. I was actually going to ask you the same. What are you doing up at this hour? Sounded downstairs like you were having aerobic exercises. I didn't know what he meant, but I decided to play along, so I said, Oh, sorry about that. I slipped and fell, and then I just knocked down a lot of things, which I had to clean up. Didn't mean to wake you. Sorry. Nah, it's fine, son. Just wanted to make sure you're fine. You're okay, right? Yeah, I am. So, I waited for him to say goodbye. Vincent puckered up his lips and nodded, looking down at his shoes before looking back at me. Can I come in for a few minutes? He asked. I was so caught off guard that I simply opened my mouth, not sure what to say politely to decline. Just for a few minutes, he said when he saw my hesitation. I know it's really early in the morning, but I just wanted to talk to you about something. I nodded hesitantly and opened the door widely, gesturing him to come on in. We sat in the living room, and I didn't offer him anything to drink this time since I wanted him to leave as soon as possible. Listen, son, he started, about our last conversation. I'm sorry about the way I behaved. It wasn't very polite of me to see you off before Marge served lunch. No, it's fine. I dismissed his statement. I mean, I should be the one apologizing. No, you were curious, and it's normal. Hell, I'd have a ton of questions if I were in that situation too. Susan was like that as well, curious about everything, never stopping until she completed a task or got her answers. You remind me of her a lot, you know. He looked at me with sadness in his eyes. I didn't respond. I was somewhat moved by what he said, but my mind was elsewhere right now. Every now and then, I'd glance at the storage door, anticipating, but kind of scared. Vincent looked down and let out a chuckle, shaking his head. He looked at me and continued speaking. The truth is, I had stopped thinking about her since I simply wanted to push it out of my mind. and never think about it again. But that's impossible. This apartment is a constant reminder. And then there's you, Nathan. Every time I see you, I remember her. And it makes me sad and happy at the same time. I know it all probably sounds very stupid. I sighed and said, Vincent, it's 4 a.m. in the morning and you're tired. We can talk about this over a beer tomorrow. Vincent chuckled again. Yeah, I guess we can. I just wanted you to know that if you need anything, any help at all, or whatever, I'm here for you. You understand? He shot me a stern look. Yeah, I think I do, I nodded. All right, well, I should get going. Marjorie's baking a pie tomorrow, so stop by anytime you like. I tell you, that woman is one hell of a cook. He stood up. He took a step toward the exit, but then stopped and glanced at the storage door. He stared the door up and down. Something wrong? I asked him. No, nothing. He smiled and looked at me, kind of odd, and went to the entrance door. I'll be there tomorrow around 6, maybe? I said. Sure thing. I won't be going anywhere, so feel free to stop by any time that works for you. He smiled again and turned to leave. Have a good night, Nate. He waved, facing away from me, which reminded me of our first encounter. That night when I first heard some noises coming from the storage, and he came to ask me to keep the noises down. I waved back and watched all the way until he was out of my sight. When he was gone, I waited another few minutes or so at the door. Then I went back inside my apartment and closed the door. I grabbed the gas can and started to pour the liquid all over the apartment. Whoever the landlord was, he could go screw himself along with this damned apartment. I sparingly poured the liquid all over the floor, walls, and furniture, painting the once pristine apartment with stains and a pungent gasoline smell, which permeated the entirety of the air. I poured extra gasoline on the storage door and the surrounding walls and floor, and then dispensed the rest of it around the kitchen and living room, gently putting the can down. It took everything in me not to use this adrenaline to toss the gasoline violently on the floor, but I didn't want to arouse suspicion with Vincent downstairs. Once all that was done, I stood for a moment to observe my masterpiece. The apartment was definitely going to be uninhabitable after this, at least for a while. I could only hope that the fire would spread enough to destroy the entire place beyond repair. I opened my apartment door just enough to peek out into the hallway, and when I was sure no one was there, I stepped outside and went to the fire alarm. I had to warn the residents before I actually started the fire, otherwise they could all get hurt. I owed at least that much to Dolores and Vincent. I thought of Michelle and how withered she looked back in that strange world. I thought about her sister and how the apartment enslaved her as nothing more than a tool. I thought about Martin and Susan and everyone else who probably fell victim to the apartment. And with those thoughts, I smashed the fire alarm glass with my elbow as hard as I could. I pressed the big red button and the alarm blared, causing my ears to throb. I backtracked to my apartment and saw the door to 307 was open. Dolores stood in the threshold, visibly scared. "Nathan, what's going on?" she asked, probably still confused after just waking up. "You need to get out of here now, Dolores. It's not safe here anymore," I shouted over the alarm and still barely heard my own voice. She looked at me with a look of concern and leaned to shout into my ear. "Whatever you plan to do, make sure you finish it. No one can set foot inside that apartment ever again." I nodded and gestured her to leave. She didn't even bother closing her apartment door and instead hurriedly made her way to the stairs. She looked at me one last time before descending. I didn't have much time before the fire department was informed, so I quickly went back to the entrance of my room. I pulled out the Zippo and tested it. A small flame sparked to life. I remember thinking it would have been a damn shame if I didn't know how to work it and had to go borrow a lighter from a neighbor. I closed the lid of the Zippo and carefully knelt down, observing room 304 one last time. I put my thumb on the lid to open it, and then the back of my head suddenly exploded with pain. I stumbled forward, dropping the Zippo. "No, Nathan! I won't let you do this!" A voice resounded somewhere in the distance, and I knew right away, without a doubt, that it was Vincent. I tried to turn around, but my vision was blurry, and I could hardly move. I felt Vincent grabbing my shoulder and forcefully turning me onto my back. "I won't let you kill my daughter!" he shouted, towering above me at the entrance. And with that, we have part 14 of this almost very, very, very close to being done, fabulous, haunting mystery story. And it's got creatures, it's got mystery, it's got haunting, it's got everything. And it is quite a doozy. It's been a long one, so I hope you've enjoyed. And get ready for the finale. It will be either the next video or the following video. And we will see what it was all about very, very soon, my friends. In the meantime, I hope you have a lovely day, lovely afternoon. And again, I save all my babbling, or most of it, for after the outro. So if you don't want to hear any extra little channel news, after you hear the outro sound, you can skedaddle. Otherwise, I will see all you lovelies very, very soon. Have a great day. Bye.